So you guys have mentioned, I guess that's us, in the past that it's not healthy to feed more than 5 pounds of grain per feeding. You're very astute listener and reader of our materials. Is it safe to feed around 5 pounds of, say, beet pulp or alfalfa pellets, since they are technically not a grain? I'm looking to put weight on my OTTB, which we love those around here, and have been soaking both alfalfa pellets and beet pulp. Comes out to about 5 or 6 pounds in weight. Is there an alternative where I can feed less but maintain his weight? So there's a lot of questions in here, but I also want to touch on that she said it comes out to about 5 or 6 pounds in weight. Is that before or after the water?
It sounds to me like it's after the water.
I think so too.
And that's kind of not how we would weigh it.
Water doesn't count, otherwise I'd be in big trouble.
No. So 5 or 6 pounds before wetting it is more accurate.
Okay.
That said, that there are different rules when it comes to feeding beet pulp and alfalfa, and if you've watched these, then you know that those two feedstuffs are some of my favorite ones for adding weight to horses, hard keepers or seniors or whatever. We use them also for horses that can't have a lot of sugars and starches because they both have low starch sugar, low NSC. Horses that don't have good teeth, that have lost their ability to chew and grind. Horses that have respiratory problems, so they can't have dusty hay or whatever. So beet pulp and alfalfa are your friends, whether it's pellets or cubes or chopped or anything. So as far as guidelines amount-wise, beet pulp is like, it's got the energy of grain, but the digestibility of hay. It's a very digestible, soluble fiber, fermentable fiber. So the bacteria in the hindgut, which is what we're really concerned about, they love it. And that's what makes it much better than grain as a feedstuff for your horse, because it is technically forage that is fermented. So that's a good thing. Why you can't feed it strictly is it doesn't have a ton of protein, and it doesn't have the full complement of the essential amino acids. It has the correct ratio of calcium to phosphorus, but it has way more calcium than is necessary, like a 10 to 1, and you only need 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. It's the right direction of imbalance, but it's still imbalanced. Low fat, good energy. So it's not something you can completely replace hay with. In fact, the amount is 25% of your hay is about all you want to swap for. So moving to alfalfa then, that's also something, while it's got its purposes, like one thing we like to use it for is horses with gastric ulcers. There's lots of research that says, for whatever reason, we think we know, alfalfa has great buffering capacity for the acid in the stomach, and it's a great tool to manage horses with ulcers. But you can't just feed alfalfa. It is way too rich, meaning it's high in calories and energy, and also protein. It also has a lot of calcium as related to phosphorus, not quite as much as the beet pulp. But you know, neither of them are balanced for the vitamins and minerals either. So they're not complete feedstuffs like what I would only use, but certainly in the 5 to 6 pounds dry, excellent choices. And she doesn't have to be worried about them thinking that they're grain, because they're not made up of simple sugars and starches, the simple carbohydrates, which are broken down in the stomach and small intestine. That is not at all a worry. They're both considered forages and super healthy for the horse.
And to help you out with a little bit of that math, if you're feeding forage as the component, the basis of your horse's diet, 1 to 2% of his body weight is what you should be aiming for. So for a 1,000-pound horse, 10 to 20 pounds. And then you said you should be replacing about 25% of the hay with the beet pulp. Is that true for alfalfa too, or would you say would that be on the whole? If you're going to replace some of the hay, you would use to that 25%.
I don't know that I've seen the 25% rule, a hard figure for how much alfalfa hay to replace. It's more like feed to effect. So we use alfalfa for the young growing horses, for pregnant and lactating mares, for the really hard working horses, and you give as much as makes the horse's body condition be in the ideal range.
Excellent. And so that's where if you're at that 20 pounds of forage per day, 25% of that is 5 pounds.
I'm going with 5, yeah.
Just like we said. So that's that 5 to 6 pounds. If that's before the water, you're right on the money as far as what you should be feeding.
Good
job. Her last part of the question is,
I'm not done.
is there any alternative where I can feed less but maintain his weight? So aside from beet pulp and alfalfa, is there anything that you would say is in your top favorites? Because you mentioned that those are some of your favorite ways to help keep weight on these easy keepers. Is there anything else you would recommend as like if she doesn't want to feed that or she doesn't want to feed as much of that, although the amounts you're feeding,
can be a pain.
Not a problem.
Yeah.
Anything else she should consider in there?
Fat works tremendously for some horses because it's very dense, very calorie dense, very energy dense. And then for some horses, if you provide digestive support, then it helps them extract nutrition out of the food they're eating more efficiently. Yeast is very good at doing that. So I guess I would think about what digestive support could I add and use some probiotics, some prebiotics, yeast enzymes, and maybe get extra nutrition, not extra, but get the right amount of nutrition, get everything out of it that I'm feeding.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's nothing wasted.
Yeah, get the most from your groceries, as one of my old vets used to say.
I like it.
So with all of that in mind, you could supplement with fats, you could supplement with digestion. You didn't tell us how old your horse is, but you did mention teeth is always a good thing to check. If you have a horse that's having trouble maintaining his weight, might not be able to eat very comfortably or very effectively, so always check the teeth.